Hello, and karibuni, as we say here in Kenya. I hope my mic is live this time, as I always end up starting the show with a So welcome to episode 26 of our Great Leadership live show, and thank you for making time to spend an hour with our guests, Waweru and I this evening. So human communication is the key to our health and happiness. This is a universal truth. A wide range of recent studies have found that prosocial behaviors such as generosity, altruism, compassion, and empathy foster the well-being of all parties involved. Even from a purely Machiavellian standpoint, doing unto others as you would have them do unto you is in your own best interest. But before we introduces today's guests, let us go back in the past and go down memory lane, something that most of us Kenyans can relate to. And here we go.
You've lost your sound. Technology is an interesting thing, isn't it? Yeah, and I don't think Mato realizes that he's lost his sound. Anyway, I think we'll have to explain it once he comes back and realizes he didn't have his sound on.
Sure.
Martin, let's go. We've lost the sound completely. Like I said, he's not aware that we cannot hear the sound at all. Okay. In the meantime, let me do this. Martin, we didn't have any sound. The clip, of course, was from I think circa 1980, somewhere circa 1980 something, from Ramsey Street, the show that gave us Kylie Minogue, actually. That was Neighbours. Very interesting, very catchy tune. Neighbours, everybody needs good neighbours. With a little understanding, we can find the perfect blend. That kind of segues into what we're doing on our show this evening. We're talking about Love Nine Neighbour, and in studio with us, we have an interesting panel of guests to talk to. For once, I don't think I've been outnumbered, because today we have two men and one lady. Yeah, usually it's always like two ladies, one guy. So I'd like to start by asking actually the lady to introduce herself, what she does. Then I'll move to Ismail, then I'll move to Clifford. So Dr. please let us know who you are, what you do.
Thank you. My name is Gr8leadership. I am a lecturer in the University of Nairobi Department of Sociology and Social Work, and I mainly teach undergraduates and postgraduates collective behavior, consumer behavior, social stratification, all the kinds of subjects that would actually inform a lot of what we shall discuss today in this show. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Clifford, or Ismail, sorry. Ismail, let us know who you are, what you do.
Thank you, Waweru. Ismail Omol, I'm married with 2 kids. I'm married to Gr8leadership. I run an organization called Sledge Group. It's an IT firm. Basically, we do stock audits for retailers mainly. So that's our main focus. So we've got that covering Africa for now. But other than that, as part of our CSR, we develop applications for communities. So we have applications that run actually your gated communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ismail. Last but not least, Clifford.
Okay, thanks, Waweru. My name is Clifford Watch, and I am a teacher by profession. 8 to 5, I'm actually a teacher, but beyond 5, I run an organization called Homeless of Nairobi, which basically deals with feeding, rescue, rehabilitation, reintegration of street boys within the area of Parklands and Westlands. We also run a children's home in Gashie. Yes. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you for joining us, all three of you. We'll expand on obviously the areas that you work on as we go through the show. I'd like to start off the question with Clifford. Last in, first out.
Yeah.
Right. So I want to ask this question. So to what extent do you and your community practice the principles of reach out, listen, take action?
Okay, good. Thanks a lot for that question. Of course, being a teacher, then I'm also a storyteller, so I prefer telling stories of how I began the feeding program. And actually, you know, when you meet the street boys or the street kids or the street families, you don't pay much attention. So someone asks you for a 10 bob or 5 bob, and of course, sometimes you toss coins at them. So let me say there's this little boy who, over a period of time, actually became quite close or quite fond of each other. But you know, when I blinked, the guy had become taller. And when I blinked again, it was like 5, 7 years. And I realized that for 5 or 7 years, this guy has been on the streets and I've done nothing. And after 10 years, the guy was almost my height and he was still on the streets. And all that I was doing is just giving him morsels, you know, kind of crumbs. Today food here, tomorrow food here, you know, kind of thing. And then I just stopped and said, I don't think I'm helping this guy. And I'm not helping the people who are also with him, right? So there and then I made a conscious decision in 2014 that this has to stop. And we have to go more into a structured system and program, which is basically where we started our daily feeding program in 2014. So 6 years we've been feeding guys on a daily program, on a daily basis. But beyond feeding, what have we done with the community? Because here I'm very, very interested in the community. And we have actually rallied the Westlands Parklands community, business community, to get involved. And of the daily feeding program, out of the 7 days a week, 4 of the days are actually sponsored by the business community around Westlands Parklands. More than that, it's just not feeding, you know, kind of. I mean, you're feeding, then what? Exactly. So again, you've rallied the community. Other than feeding, we have the children's home whereby we take people who wants to be institutionalized and go the extra mile. What about the ones who don't want to be institutionalized? We have programs for them. We started a job placement. And amazingly, people are brave out there. I've got 10 guys who are now working from the streets, right? These are guys who dropped out of school. And now some business communities have actually taken them in. One, for mentorship, apprenticeship, and job placement. And secondly, it actually led to job creation. Now, what has this done? This has empowered not only the guys who came from the streets, it has even empowered the guys who are on the streets, giving them hope. Listen, forget about this guy who's giving us food. You know, kind of this guy, him is okay, he's working, he's driving, he's living in a whatever kind of thing. No, but you know, the guys who help us to serve the food, the guys who come here are street guys like us. And there's hope, you know, kind of, we can get out, we can be better. And all that they need to do is just to unlock, you know, kind of the inside, the inner bit, which is always a problem. All we can do is to extend a hand, but if the other guy does not take the hand and grip it and agree to come out of where they are, you know, kind of, then it is next to impossible. So we have rallied all these community. We even have, should I say what, the police, the chief, and all these guys, the whole community galvanized, you know, kind of to try and help these guys. The progress is very, very slow, you know, kind of, right? Because for every 5 guys that we get out, 3 of them go back, you know, kind of. So the progression is not as fast as we want it to be. And then, should I say their lifespan, you know, kind of, right? Because of the kind of the drugs that they use and the kind of lifestyle they are and their diets, the lack of, you know, proper dieting, most of them don't live, they don't live long, beyond 28, 30, you know, kind of, they just succumb to all these things and they pass away. So yes, the community is galvanized and we've gotten people to reach out and there are more and more people coming in. Religious institutions, we've reached them out and they've actually responded. Education institutions, we have actually reached out to them and they've responded, and the business community. So we have all this kind of a model that we're trying to experiment with. And once we have it working, then we'll replicate it in other slums or other informal settlements. So that's where we are with all this principle of reach out. And we've told people, listen, we actually, we're not asking for financial support. We are asking for you to come and give what you can. So, can you give your time? Yes, come and give your time. Can you give resources, food stuff, clothes, what do you call it, stationery? Can you give that? Yes, come and do it. Or do you want to be Kenyan chini ya maji? You don't want to be known, and you just want to send money and keep quiet and fine, do it. Do you want to sponsor kids back to school? Yes. Here's a list of the kids. Here are the schools. Here's a bank account and everything. Do it. So where do you put yourself? Where do you find yourself most comfortable in all this area of reaching out to your neighbor with the principle of do something. Just don't sit there, don't mum. Do something. Get off your comfort zone and just do something. Kind of, right?
Right.
Even if it means, as Mother Teresa says, you cannot feed 100 of them, just feed one.
Yeah. Let me bring in the other guests. You've touched on 3 points I'm going to bring up a bit later on. But I want to bring in Daktari. I'm going to ask you to unmute your mic just now, because I know when the minute people start talking, like, oh, they say many things and then their mics are muted. So Daktari, I want to ask this question. Do you believe that the true measure of society is informed by how we care for the needy?
Yes, the answer is affirmative, and there is literature to back just that. That indeed, when you look at a society, it actually gains. It's better when the needy are taken care of. And I'll give you the example of a study that was done, basically comparing the Asian tigers and others, the others who would have been developing in the 60s at the same rate as the Asian tigers. But the Asian tigers were seen to be developing faster than perhaps Africa and Latin America because of the caring for others. Now, the biggest question that comes up following that would be, what has happened to our spirit of Ubuntu? There is that, in Africa, we pride ourselves that we have an Ubuntu spirit. Therefore, have we lost it? And there's this other big network that is trying to rally around that what Clifford has just talked about is basically Ubuntu, that I cannot be happy in my corner if I am seeing things around me that really ask me or lead me to question my humanity. Can I be a human being if I am just walking past this person who's on the side of the street, basically hungry because you can see it, and he's growing, but nothing in me changes. It doesn't irritate me one bit, or it doesn't bother me one bit. And therefore, the question is, or the question you've asked is, does it make us better? Is a society better? Does it seem better when it's taking care of its needy? And you'd say yes, not so much to hide them, but to even recognize them. We recognize that this is there, and so what can we do about it? So we ask ourselves questions in terms of mitigating that, what we would call those negative outcomes, because the street people, for example, are there because of a certain outcome, perhaps an experience that they had themselves that caused them to move in that direction. So when you're able to ask yourself, this could be me, if you put yourself in the shoes, you're able to empathize, then I think you're moving in the right direction. So a society that has greater empathy seems to deal better with the needy, and therefore the outcomes generally for everyone are more positive.
Thank you, Doctor. You've just triggered something something that I've been thinking about, and it's a show idea. I know I'm digressing a bit, but I want to do something called A Day in My Shoes, where we take people who do like these kind of charity things. For example, I'll ask Mato to then go be a laborer on a site, or maybe try and say, okay, fine, this is your corner here. You'll have to get X amount of money per day. I know it's a bit rough right now, but I'd like to do something called A Day in My Shoes, where you actually put yourself in the shoes of the people who actually, you see them and you ignore them, but now understanding from their perspective how they might feel, or what's going on with them emotionally. But I'll come back to that another time. So Ismail, let me bring you into the conversation. I wanted to ask you, and because your background is IT, I needed to ask you this particular question. How has technology driven greater sense of community? especially with taking stock of how many how communities are now actually helping each other?
Thanks, Waweru. Thanks for the question. I think it depends on who you ask.
Okay.
If you ask an IT expert like me, okay, you'll get a different answer from the answer you get from if you ask somebody back at home who's never done anything like this. Okay. So just to take it back, just to tie back to what Clifford was saying, and bring it to this question which you're asking now. How you talked about whether you help and whether that help will be appreciated or not.
Yes.
And before we go into technology, we have to understand there's a story I normally say talk about. It's about Ethiopian shirts. Okay, like you could have a very good product or a very good initiative that you want to deliver to the community. Okay, but so long as the community does not need it, you are just selling Ethiopian shirts. You'll sell, they'll buy, or you'll donate, but they'll never wear it. Okay. Now, the issue of technology and now back-to-back COVID-19. I mean, it has split our society in a sense, in that now people are secluded, people don't want to move because they can have meetings online and stuff like that. So that sense, the traditional sense of community is gone, okay? But if you look at the community, let's say your workplace, now that community has been brought together because now they can use technology more to communicate, they can telecompute, people enjoy working from home rather than just going to the office. So it depends, as I said, is who is answering that question, okay? So you look at somebody who's never used technology before, like you, if you are 60 and above and you've never used it, and then COVID came, now it's splitting people because now you cannot reach them, all right? But then you look at the people staying in the urban centers, all right? The youth, they can use technology, they're in the, so you find that even if COVID came, the sense of community is still there. They can reach out to their teams and still work things out. So it depends on who you ask and where you're positioned in the community and what is your community. Because also our community, we have different communities and it's diverse. Whether it's the work community, whether it's your village, whether it's your gated community.
Yeah.
May I just piggyback on Ishmael's contribution?
Sure.
And as you was talking, I was thinking about a community that I have worked with in Kayole, and for them, technology actually was the game changer. What it has done is it's the great what I would call it's a mobilizer for them. So because when the COVID sort of landed in the community, they were now stuck because they're used to doing things together. You know, let's go and clean, let's go and find these women who can stitch. So it's a very groupy kind of affair going on there for survival. And now with COVID and you're being told stay at home, work from home, it was going to be a problem. And so what helped the youth in that community is the fact that at least there is mobile telephony, even if they're sharing it. And so for them, it worked positively in terms of taking care of each other, who is doing what, who needs to go to the hospital. And so sending the right services to the right places. So that, it's got two dimensions to it. I think we like to look at it as in sociology, we'll say there's an argument saying it's a great equalizer, but there's now a big argument saying it is a great divider. And it's going to separate us a lot more. But that's, an argument for another day. But I think on the whole, in terms of those in the lower socioeconomic status, it has helped them even become visible, by looking at pictures of people who don't have, sometimes it will inspire you to a different direction as you sit in your nice warm lounge and somebody else is getting rained on. So you feel it, you're triggered because of what you're able to see. So there's two ways of looking at that, the way technology has impacted.
Okay, thanks for that extra bit on top. Clifford, because we started with you, and this actually now obviously talks more so to what you do. I wanted to ask a question: where does my accountability stop when dealing with programs like Adopt a Village or Feed a Family or what have you? And how does one hold accountable those who are running such programs? If I was to come to you and say, this is what I contributed, how do I then hold you accountable for where it goes? The reason I ask is sometimes some people might be a bit hesitant because they don't know where that contribution or what they're doing, what's going on with what they've contributed. I mean, the onus is on them to obviously follow up, but I need to know, okay, my accountability stops at I've given you bus, it's up to me. You guys have got, I've done my good deed for the day. Then what happens from there?
Okay, thanks for that question. Again, let me just elaborate using a short story. Should I say the society or the community that we belong to, they have actually put people at certain pedestals, right? And when I started the feeding program, the boys, I mainly deal with boys, they used to call me pastor. In fact, some of them still call me pastor because to them, anybody who does such charitable work has to be a man of God. It cannot be just sorry to use the word, garagarias like us, kind of, right? So when I told them that I am a teacher, kind of, they said, okay, the doubts started coming in. What do you have for it or in it? What are you looking for it? Kind of. And there's this boy called Billy, I've never forgotten him. He was like 15, 16 years old. He looked at me, cynically and said, we've seen many of you guys. They come here, they go. How long will you last? I told him, Billy, okay, let's see. So after 1 week, the guy said, hey, and you've tried. After 2 weeks, I'm not gone. The guy said, hey, it looks like you have something more than, kind of, right? And of course, that was 2014. When 2016, or was it 2017 came and the elections came and guys were waiting for, is this guy going to vie and he's trying to whatever? And none of that came. Again, they realized this guy is not a politician. So anyway, back to your question. There's a lot of, should I say, cynicism that goes with charity because guys think that you are there to make money and take over. Because that's what has happened. Guys have done that. We offer people like a menu. Okay? What do you want? Do you want to give service? And actually, we insist a lot on service. Because if people ask me the biggest thing that I lack or the biggest thing that I need, I'll tell you it's mentors. It's not money. The easiest thing to give is money. The hardest thing to give is actually your time and your service and yourself. And that's why people don't come. So in terms of accountability, we tell guys, listen, here's a list of things, kind of, right? Like I'll tell you an open secret amongst our Asian community. Very lovely fellows. They won't give you money.
Okay.
They'll give you the food stuff. So they'll source amongst their own business people and promote the business people. Buy the rice from the business people and bring you the rice. Okay? But our other fellows, African fellows, they're very good. They give you the money. It's like, it's the money you want. Here's the money, kind of, right? Now, we also have a principle that if you donate something, come and see where it goes.
Yes.
I don't want you to just come and send me money. Come and see where it goes. Because of that, we have people who have ended up in the slums of Deep Sea, and they've never been there. And when they come to the slums, which is what I encourage them to do, they see things that we don't see. Because for us, we are there on a daily basis. So it's like your sweat, kind of. You can't smell your sweat. You can't smell your fat. You're used to it. They come, they see things differently. And they're like, oh, okay, Cliff, have you thought of this? Have you thought of this? And I'm like, yeah, that's the reason why I asked you to come and see where your money goes, right? And then you come with other ideas. Invariably, they end up like sponsoring more or giving us more food stuff or giving us more money or sponsoring more kids to the school. The other thing about school fees is that we tell people these are the schools, right? Okay, sorry, these are the kids, these are the schools. This is the account number of the school, right? So you can actually deposit the money directly to the account and we get the receipt, kind of, right? So that guys know that, okay, fine. Well, we have many different kinds of, should I say, donors. There are those ones who like A will give you X amount and say, do whatever you want with it. The others will give you amount and say, I want specifically for this and I want proof. The others will come first and see and then decide what to do, kind of, right? So we encompass everyone. And then the accounts are open. Whoever wants to see them, they're there. And we move on, kind of. We actually embrace people on their comfort, not our comfort.
Okay. Thank you so much, Clifford. Daktari, I want to jump in here. This is an interesting question. The idea of keeping one's head down and keeping their nose clean, or sticking to my side of the street. I know some people advocate for that, but doesn't that come into conflict with the concept of love thy neighbor?
Yes, yes, it does. It's in fact stick to my lane is even the newer.
Yes, stick into my lane. Exactly. Yeah.
My lane. And that is the tragedy of who we are. It is what Clifford is explaining there is what we would all enjoy if we thought like him. But I can almost tell you he's only 1%. The rest of us want to just do what we can do on our side. One, because of the way society has evolved. If you look at, and sometimes we can blame our colonial experience, where we're thinking only of ourselves. Capitalism, I want to improve, and if it's at the expense of the other person, that is okay. That's not my business. Perhaps the government should be concerned with that person. I was trying to do this. I'm fencing my home, and if it means that the next person has to go around rather than just right through there, that is their problem and not mine. And you could give the story of garbage, a lot of garbage collection problems where, I am dealing with my garbage, and therefore when I dump it there, it's an open space. It shouldn't bother anybody else because that's an open space, and it's the government's problem to then collect that garbage. So that is tantamount to sticking to my side. As long as things work for me, what happens to the next person is not my business. Now, that of course, when that sentiment comes to the surface, you've lost what? A sense of community. You're no longer together. You're thinking about only me. Now, the question we would ask is, can me survive? We start off in sociology with man is a social animal. And social does not mean just meeting and talking, but even you can only survive if you depend on the other person, the other person depends on you, and your goals and ideas and philosophies are the same. Now, how do you come back to the center? How do you move away from the edge, like I said, where we found ourselves? Due to the capitalistic tendencies that we are really promoting. And you can talk about globalization, where I'm thinking only about me looking great in my outfit when my house help perhaps is walking around in tatters. And I can tell myself, but I pay her salary, so she should be thinking about how she can buy whatever she can buy, wherever she should buy it. So that is, it's unfortunately, and this I say with after a lot of observation, unfortunately, that is what is happening. The love thy neighbor thing is left to when I'm sitting in the church pew. Yeah, I can love my neighbor, peace be with you, and that's enough. But when I'm out there, it is a rat race, and I'm in this competition, and I must win. Otherwise, then who will see me? Being seen is also really very important. So it does conflict with the love thy neighbor theme that we need to continue.
Yes.
And we have to move in that direction. We have to reconsider, perhaps redefine who is my neighbor, that very simple thing, that very simple question. Who is my neighbor first? And then perhaps we can move beyond that. So to resolve that conflict, let's go back to definition. Who is my neighbor? When the school feeding is going on, is it neighbors feeding each other, or is it these children who are dependent, we are feeding them? If it were not for us, they would not be there, and so on and so forth. Without Clifford, it will not run, So we need to expand that idea, that concept of neighbor, to be all inclusive, and perhaps talk, and that's why maybe we have a problem talking about Kenyans. It's easier to talk about tribe because tribe, I don't have to really define who my neighbor is. But when it comes to Kenyan, the expectation is a little bit greater. It means everybody. And do I want everybody? Perhaps that's where I need to rethink the whole thing.
Okay, thank you, Dr. I'm going to shift. It's come to the bottom of the hour. I'm going to shift gears slightly and come to you, Ismail, and ask this, because you're a community leader, and I know the community area that you're talking about and where you lead. But I wanted to ask you, for your personal experience, what are the advantages and disadvantages of the likes of gated communities, where neighbors are, close in contact with each other?
Thank you. You got me on that. You put me on the spot, but I'll flip it a little bit. In the sense that you've talked about gated estates or gated community. Okay.
Yes.
First of all, let's understand that we are engineered differently. Okay. And gated communities, it's not something for everybody and everyone. Okay. You cannot all fit in a gated. Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. We can hear you.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that gated communities is not for everybody. There are some people, they'll never just fit. So they are better off staying in a flat. Yeah, so they're good. All right.
Okay.
So let's look at the advantages and disadvantages that we've asked about. Okay, one.
Let me interrupt. Ishmael, I want you to say why we wouldn't fit.
No, just the way you are engineered, okay? Because if you're in a gated community, okay, first of all, if you're a social animal, okay, you'll miss some of the interactions that you had before, all right? And that will cause problems, all right? And then there are some, let me call them mediocre activities, like just dropping rubbish everywhere. You don't feel anything about it, but in the community, there need to be order on how things are done and stuff like that. So that's what I'm saying. It's not for everyone, all right? But there are some people who are engineered, okay? And they're better placed to stay in a gated community, all right? So they like order, they like things. So let's go to the advantages and disadvantages so that it's clearer, all right? So if you look at the advantages, one, there's exclusivity. So if you are someone who likes that and you don't like interacting with people all the time, so you'll enjoy that. If security is key to you'll get security within a gated community. And then the little issue of traffic, people driving past. So the traffic levels in a community is in our gated community is much lower because you control who comes in and who goes out. Tied to that, there are very few hawkers who can walk into the estate. So you'll see fewer solicitors in a gated community. So if you're used not to go shopping, you like buying things by the roadside, gated community is not for you. Just accept and move. And then it promotes, if you look at it for the homeowner, the value of the home, okay? It will promote higher value for your home, okay? You can get amenities, say you want to get water, pump in one line, it comes through and then you distribute it. So it's much easier. Electricity is much easier to manage and stuff like that, okay? Even now with this day and age of internet, you get one service provider or two service providers or even three, and then you can control them within a certain room, okay? And then distribute for everybody else. And then last but not least is just a gated community gives you peace of mind and a quieter atmosphere, all right? So let's look at the disadvantages. One, living in a gated community means you have to follow rules, okay? So there's certain amount of noise levels that you have to keep. So you cannot be playing music. You cannot be zooming your car all the time, okay? Secondly, you are responsible for ongoing costs, and this is a big one. Some people, and that's why I was saying some people are not just designed for gated communities. When you're in a gated community, after paying for your house, there's something called service charge, which so many people do not like paying for whatever reason. But that's a discussion for another day. You just battle to get people pay for service charge, and it's not rent; it's just service charge. All right. Three. Some homeowners will feel like their privacy is violated. All right. maybe you wanted to live in a ranch and not a gated community, but your budget did not allow, so you land in a gated community. Yeah, so you don't have enough privacy, okay? And then it also creates a sense of elitism. So you get this feeling that, no, we are in a gated community, the rest are in what you'd call like Islando or whatever it is. So you start excluding others, all right? The other thing in a gated community is that receiving deliveries is a problem, because everybody coming in and going out has to be checked, all right? So if you order for anything, whether online, for the thing to get to you, it's a little bit problematic. But if you're staying outside a gated community, you just tell them, I'm in this estate, this floor, they'll bring in the stuff, okay? Also, it takes time for homeowners to check in through the gate. That is security. When you want to come in, or whether you have to use your card to get through, stuff like that, all right? Last but not least, another disadvantage is social gathering. They're just challenges, because when you want to host a party, if you're in a different setup, you just call your friends and then you have a party. But in a gated community, you have to talk to the committee, get approval, get a sign off from the security, and then a security guard has to be stationed where, and then after that, the garbage guys have to come and clean up after you, because in a gated community, you are not expected to clean yourself. You understand what I'm saying? All right, so
Yes,
there's a way done. All right, yeah, so that's what I can say. I see Dr. is laughing, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you're quietly laughing at Daktari. Do you want to contribute something?
Yeah. No, I was, as he spoke, it actually went in the direction that I was wanting it to go to. The history of gated communities is, a place where the wealthy want to reside and they show their status, to each other, really, because it's very homogeneous. It is people who are like each other. To the extent that if you're different, just like he said, you stand out and you're uncomfortable, because it's not, the neighbors don't necessarily have to speak to each other. You just nod, because you're really you're not yelling over fences. And a lot of the new ones, if you've visited, don't really have a fence. You know where the boundary is and you just respect that. The fence is low, so it's not those large walls you would see in some parts of the city. He mentioned the parts of the city where you want to be, your privacy is this little space because you just suddenly got it and it's yours and you love it. In gated community, the more they can see your lawn looking nice, the more we can appreciate, well, this person has got aesthetic value and knows aesthetics, and the paintings are, important and so on. So to that extent, I think you did get it right. For me, the disadvantage would be the homogeneity. It's so closed, such that if you've got everything is efficient. You spoke about it. You don't have to clean up after yourself. And that it sounded you didn't want that. You'd want to clean up by yourself. Many of us would like somebody else to clean it. It's okay. How much is it? We shall pay. So because for the gated community dwellers, money is not really the issue. They're not after saving. It is not about saving. It's about enjoying the fact that I've made my money and I've got this nice house and I can live in it. That's really what it is. So conspicuous consumption is perhaps the more visible thing that wants to be seen there. And so the housewives who are peeping out of their window, seeing a larger refrigerator go into somebody else's home, you can rest assured after 3 months they'll have the large one themselves. So like I said, homogeneity. I don't know about the men and their cars. I'm keeping it very gendered. So the neighbor has this kind of car, and you'll find that after a while you'll move from your little one to the four-wheeler, because that is really what it's about. So to that extent, you certainly have.
Yeah, but there's also pressure from the kids. Look at Baba Nani has a bigger car than yours. What are you doing? Baba so-and-so has a bigger car than yours. That will prompt the men. That will prompt the men to say, okay, fine, I'm going out to be. Here's my savings. Let's buy a car just because of my toy.
Can I jump in as well?
Yeah, sure, Clifford. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking of gated community, but who are the workers who work for them? I mean, I think they spend more time in those houses than the owners themselves. So in the end, whoever ends up really enjoying all those amenities that you're talking about.
The irony.
Just a thought, kind of the house girl, the security guys, the groundsman, all those people. Yes. So it becomes another.
Clifford, I agree.
Yes,
I agree with you. The groundsmen and the workers, they enjoy the facilities that they're in, all right? But tell them that, would you want to live here for the rest of your life? They'll not. That's what I was saying, gated communities. They're saying, no, it will be too boring to be here, okay?
Yeah.
But those people, you tell them, okay, now you can live here for a month or for a year without going home. No, they'll say, no. This is not for me.
Okay, guys, let me jump in and take a quick break. We'll come back and continue this conversation. I like the way this thing is going in terms of the different views. That I don't think a lot of people have actually stopped to think, actually, that's a very valid point, and especially Clifford, what you just said at the end. But I'd like to ask Martin, do we have a breather, what I'd like to call a breather?
Yes, yes, I do. Just let's take a deep breath and enjoy the music, and we come back with another set of questions from Orero. There we go.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. If you give a little more than you take, and if you try to fix more than you break, if you're the kind who takes the time to help a stranger in the rain, there's a place for people like you. If you stand up for those down on their knees, and lend a voice to those who cannot speak, if you shine a little light, give sight to the ones who've lost their way, there's a place for people like you. I've heard up there the streets are made of gold, and when you get there, there's a hand to hold. I believe when your days down here are through, there's a place up there for people like you.
There we go.
Yeah.
Are we re-energized for round two?
It's still sinking. It's still sinking in. It's very deep, kind of,
It is.
Yeah.
I don't think I think we were stuck because I can see our guests are still looking at. There's something they still want to say about where we left off the conversation. So by all means, please, I'd like to give you that opportunity, and then we can try and move on. I know Clifford wants to say something about dependency, and Daktari, you wanted to talk about learned behavior of loving their neighbor.
Yeah. I just wanted to bring that to the surface so we don't forget it going forward. That because sociologists are stuck on socialization, that a lot of your action comes from having learned it. It doesn't just come from nowhere. And so, and that I was going to peg that to the discussion on the gated community, where I first said there's a lot of homogeneity, and so what you're seeing is affluence, a lot of affluence around oneself, and so children there would have to be taught that there are other different people who may not be as fortunate as ourselves, and actually get to see who those are. Because even if you look at if you would say the media might and technology might really show them that other side that they don't know about, not necessarily, because remember now you can select what you want to watch. And I don't see a 7-year-old selecting a documentary on living in a slum, not that the slum is the worst, versus watching some cartoon on Mario something or other. So that idea, so it has to be parents or guardians beginning to tell the story of the fact that, there's more to life than just this materialism, that to be able to feel like you're a human being and to enjoy being a human being, then you have to give. So learning how to give, and not giving and wanting to know what that giving actually does, following up with Clifford's model. So I'm giving, but I also make a conscious effort to be a part of that giving, and not giving out of guilt and then leaving it to roll on, and then getting a report at the end of the year of some sort. So I just thought that's important. So for many of us, perhaps, who may have made it or who are making it, what we need not forget is
yes,
the fact that we need to give, and that will inspire the loving of thy neighbor. I know there's a whole psychological thing about nobody wants to look back at where they came from. Only a few of us will say, you know what, I started out with no shoes and I went to school without shoes, and therefore for me, everybody must get shoes. That's what I need. You find some of them never want it mentioned. Many of those in the gated community, never want it mentioned that they actually used to have one meal a day, as opposed to the 3 that they're making sure arrives on the table. So that perspective, I think, needs to live with us, that there's more to this, and this is not the end, and there's somebody else. I can always do something for someone else, the leg up, so to speak.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Let me ask this question quickly to Ismail, because he's the one who triggered this whole conversation with his insight about gated communities. So how do you deal? And I know this has happened, and it happens across the board. It's not only where, and I'm sure a lot of people understand this. How do you deal with that neighbor or those neighbors who feel entitled, or who are of the mindset that the rules don't apply to them? And by extension, I want to ask the same question about, I'm going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You've got that neighbor who feels entitled, and then how do you deal with the situation of wayward teens? So it's a twofold question. That neighbor who feels entitled, and then those guys who are there smoking weed and crashing their father's cars and just being a nuisance.
Thank you, Airu. First of all, how do you deal with neighbors who feel entitled? Wow. Being in my position as a community leader, all right, you need a lot of wisdom to just go through the day. And when you wake up and you go through stuff, and all you need to know is that you'll have battles and you'll have victories along the way, okay? But you must not win every battle, all right? And to plug it in with those who feel entitled, and I'll break it down. Basically, you'll not convince everybody to do certain things using the same approach. So this is my belief. If you have somebody who's problematic within any setup, and in this case, we're talking about gated communities, I actually consider them, I'll be harsh, but I actually consider them that they are actually just displaced people, okay? You think, when you talk about people who are displaced, we think about post-election violence, people who are not fortunate, but I think money can displace you and put you in a place where you are not prepared to be in, all right? So now, how do you deal with these people? Each and every person has got a true north. Just find their true north and approach them through that level, all right?
Okay.
And there are different avenues that you can get through people. You don't have to use one formula. Now, about the teens, you just make it easy. We have the current world where people are individualistic, and you cannot tell my kid what to do. And
exactly.
And sometimes the kid will tell you, no, you're not my dad. Why are you telling me that?
Exactly. Yeah.
You break it down, all right? Where I am, what we do if there's an issue, all right? What we do is that we just call the kids, we chat, and then we call the parents and say, would you do this if your parent is here? And then you also engage the parents and ask them, okay, how come this is happening in this kind of setup and you are not present? You understand? So you can relate. Now, you will win some. You'll find some parents agreeing with you and going on with the proposals and stuff like that. But some parents can actually tell you, no. Whatever you are saying and whatever this other guy is saying, I don't believe it. My kid cannot do that. But it's part of life. You have to accept that you'll never win all the arguments and all the wars, and you'll never do things right for everybody.
Thank you so much, Ismail.
Yeah.
I think Ismail is the level-headed one. I can see you just mediating many things. So the way you're so level-headed about it, we have to look at both sides of the coin. It's a very safe approach. I like it. Different strokes for different folks. Clifford, I have a question for you. Do you want to add anything there before? Or let me ask you a question, then you can add on to anything that Ismail or Daktari said. And this obviously lends itself to what you've said. And Daktari also talked about it, that you're probably, in terms of statistics, 1% of the people actually do this. But it lends itself more to the aspect of now we're in the festive season. So Christmas is coming up, and more often than not, what happens is that suddenly there's a big sense of outpouring and towards my fellow man, what have you. Now the question is, and I don't know whether it's a psychology thing, but why is it seasonal and not a constant mindset in terms of what you guys have created? Is it a matter of people not understanding, or is it that they feel that Christmas I can give, Easter I can give? In between that, I don't feel like.
Okay, thanks a lot. Let's look at it from both sides of the divide. I mean,
yes, sir.
First, I'll look at what I would call devotion versus duty, right? I'm going to look at them differently. But let's look at it from the side of the giver, the guys who actually come to donate these things at the end of the year. Traditionally, I think the end of the calendar year is like the end of a season. It's like the end of the exam season or the end of the football season, kind of. And what nowadays Nairobians or Kenyans say, kurudishia mwili asante ama kupigia mwili pole, kind of, to thank yourself, kind of. So guys take stock of the calendar year. And one of the things of taking stock is actually to tell God, thank you for ABCD. And now, because I have ABCD, let me do EFGH. So EFGH is normally let me donate, kind of. And then it has become a culture. Naturally, it has become a culture. Let me not eat alone during this time. Let me thank God. That's one. The second thing is what I would call, it's not commercialized, but corporate CSR, right?
Yes,
corporate CSR, kind of, in the sense that it's a box, kind of, right? Because the policy of the company says ABCD, kind of, then we have to do it, kind of, just because it is a duty, kind of, right? It does not come over here. When it comes from here, then it's a devotion. So because of that, we have very interesting, between December and January, those 2 months, is where we get our highest number of donations. Right? After that, people disappear, kind of. Now you have to reach out on whatever kind of, but in December, we get surplus. And people feel that it's a duty. January, February, March, the guys who come there, I know these guys are devoted. It's devotion now. It's no longer about duty. All the corporates that we have actually engaged in and whatever kind of thing, we've told them the same thing. Please don't come in November, December, January. Can you come any other month? And after they say yes. Then they disappear. In December, you see them. You wait, from tomorrow, we'll start seeing all those visits to the slums, to the children's home, to whatever kind of thing. Well, we don't mind. It comes. That's our culture. That's our, as Daktari said, some of these things are learned. It has become part of our society. We just accept it.
Okay, thank you so much, Daktari. I like that concept of devotion versus duty. It's not something I've come across before, and I'm going to put that to my repertoire of things I didn't know. So, Daktari, I'm going to come to you. The concept of nyumba kumi, is it more prevalent among those in a lower social demographic? This perceptive, I'm talking about maybe somebody, I don't know where Mato lives, but Karen versus Kibera. The concept of nyumba kumi, is it more prevalent in the lower social classes, or sounds rude to ask that kind of question?
I think, to avoid just saying yes, I would say it is relative. It is relative to the extent that if you are finding it in Karen, the reason why it is there would be different than whatever reason is what's the right word, is occasioning in Kibera. So, for example,
Okay.
if you look at security in Kibera, the nyumba kumi is perhaps a way of insulating the community, to make sure that they know who the bad apples are and they can act towards that, or if there's need, then it can be represented through one voice to whichever source of power they need to gain attention from. For example, if they've got no drainage or their land is being grabbed somewhere, the Nyumba Kumi initiative works as a mobilizing force for them, and it is a social movement. Okay, it brings together the social movement. Now in Karen, you would find it Nyumba Kumi becomes very useful when you're having a party, because remember, you want to invite people who are not going to pinch the stuff in your house. So they're coming to your house. Basically, they'll have an outdoor thing, but they're coming there because they're your neighbors to that extent. So Nyumba Kumi in Karen serves a very different purpose than it serves in Kibera. You know, in Karen, the Nyumba Kumi perhaps would be because for if you were to also leverage security, you would be saying they've got phone numbers, but there's a company that everybody will talk to, so the company does the job. They, in terms of needs, they outsource. You know, when you've got money, you're going to outsource. Somebody else does that job for you. You're not doing the footwork, and that is why the basis of what Nyumba Kumi does and what it is for will actually differ depending on the social class or the social strata. So to speak. In the middle class, for example, just to give it a different dimension from what you gave the two extremes, the middle class now would use it both ways, and so they perhaps benefit most from Nyumba Kumi.
Right.
So if you take housing estate in Langata, for example, you've got people to come for the party, ready-made guests. You know, if you had a catastrophe, they are appearing anyway because they're your neighbor, so they identify very easily. But at the same time, when it comes to security, they know who lives in which house. It's their business. We've not seen your son for a while. Where is he? So it's right. It's okay to be nosy there, because that's already a subject of conversation. My daughter is getting married, and I need us to contribute so that we can have this kind of party. So there, perhaps the middle class benefit most from this initiative, and they already had it, so it's not anything new that you're instituting among them. That is the way I would see it.
Thank you. I like that answer. Very succinct. Almost coming out of time. I want to ask Ismail this question. Does Love Thy Neighbor aptly reflect what Mark Dunkerman called the middle ring? Obviously, you've got your outer ring, middle ring, and inner ring. But in the concept of how Love Thy Neighbor works, does it reflect what Mark Dunkerman said about the middle ring?
I think to an extent it does, and I would like to tie it back to what Dr. was saying. All right, that in Karen and in Kibra, okay, the concept of Nyumba Kumi is completely different. And to tie to this question is that it depends. In Kibra, you actually know your neighbor. Okay, so Nyumba Kumi will actually work. Okay, in Karen, you don't know your neighbor, but you know what they own. Now that's a difference. Okay.
Okay.
So in Kibra, you can sit and talk stuff, deep stuff. People will share, and they have nothing to lose. Okay, it's either girl talk or it's man talk. You just share. All right. On the flip side, in Karen, it's about I own this, I own this, I own this. So you actually don't know the person. So you find that you could be living in a community. You think you're so many, but the number of people that you actually know and can relate to deeply, your middle ring is just shrinking. It's just shrinking. Okay, you end up knowing just 2-3 people. All right. So that's how I'd put it. Yeah, I agree. It applies, but it reflects. And then it depends on your geographical location and what you want to do or you want to get to as a person, right? Do you really want to know? Do you really want to know Waweru himself, or is it Waweru who is in the studio? You understand? Those are two different people. Yeah. So until you break that, then yeah, you can help.
Okay, thank you so much, Ismail. Dr. Harry, sorry, not Dr. Harry, Clifford. I'll make you an honorary doctor if you want. On this show I can knight people and everything. So Ismail, yeah. But I wanted to come back at something you had mentioned, or something that you had done on the side that I wanted to ask about, dependency syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just enlighten our viewers about how, the concept of dependency syndrome.
When COVID started, I think that's where we saw the, let's say, the philanthropic side of Kenyans, like just one-offs, right? So between March and, should I say, May, 3 months, March, April, May, we actually saw lots of donations, kind of.
Yes.
And some of these guys who live in the slums, some of those donations could not even fit into their houses. So they ended up like selling them. And after that, about another 1 month, going towards July, August, they started drying up. And you meet guys and it's like, hey, why are you not bringing food? Kind of, that sounds of almost entitlement. Or those ones of you've been giving us every week, kind of. So what has happened? Why have you stopped? And whatever kind of thing. And others, because sometimes we'll be told, draw a list of 100 neediest people. So give a list of 100. And with that Nyungba Kumi concept, if 3 of my neighbors get and the other 7 don't get, the other 7, instead of making noise at these 3, they come to us. Kind of, what's your criteria? This, mapendanos, ukabila, nini, whatever. And I'm like, guys, we have not signed a contract that I have to give. I mean, I have to donate them. There's no contract.
Yeah.
Right? So where is this entitlement coming? Kind of. Then you realize that old, should I say, cliche that you've actually taught people not to fish, but you've not taught them how to fish. You've just taught them how to eat fish.
Give them, yes. Yeah.
So we had to redefine that, and to some extent, we started part of the donations. We tell the donors that instead of giving us foodstuff, why don't you buy the foodstuff from the local kiosk? You want the local kiosk there, right? So pick like 5 kiosk guys over there and put a standing order of 1,000 bob and whatever kind of thing. It's up to them to supply that to the people, kind of. So here the kiosk guy is gaining. And the other people are also gaining. And then we started now rotating the 100 people. So it's like, this week is this 100, the next week is a different 100 and whatever kind of thing. In that way, we try to spread it, kind of. And meanwhile, we also try to tell them that, listen, if I am feeding street guys, why don't you come and help us cook for the street guys? Also, also teach them to give back their time, right? But again, the success rate is another 20-25%. Most of them just feel like, no, this guy in Karen owes us, kind of, because he's the one who's is privileged, or he's the one who's blessed. So, Ebu, share your resources with us, kind of, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Clifford. Now, there's 3 lovely questions I have left to ask, but I can see our time is running out. So I am going to ask, in tradition of Great Leadership Live, to have your parting shots in relation to what we discussed on the show this evening. And it's been a absolutely lovely conversation. But I'm going to start with Ismail and ask you, what are your parting shots with regards to love their neighbor? Forget the Christmas period, going forward,
Thank you. I think for me, looking at loving thy neighbor, Christmas period, and 2020, the year that has been, I can summarize it that basically COVID exposed us. Okay, COVID tested us and showed how much of humanity we have in us. Okay, I think there was panic in March. There was panic, and people started behaving abnormally. All right. And Clifford is saying there are normally donations in December, November, all right? They got them in March, April, okay? Actually, people thought that the world is ending, all right? So when it reaches a point where there's panic and you start asking, who are the neediest people in this community that we can help? It means you've reached the dead end and you've just realized you did not know these people. So I think it's time that we go back to our communities, get to know people, know who Waweru is, know who Clifford is, know Daktari without the DR, okay? And then know Macho, all right? What are the things that he's struggling with? Don't wait at the end and say, okay, this has happened, so where's the direction to Mato's place? You understand?
Yeah.
All right? Yeah, so yeah, if you look at the community in that sense, it should be something that is continuous, and you need to apply yourself and just try and find out, okay, how are your neighbors doing? What are they going through? So that when these issues come, like the issue that you asked me about, what happens when you have issues with difficult neighbors? I can share with you for free, I don't have difficult neighbors, because you manage these relationships where before, all right, you have problems. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ismail. Clifford, let me ask you the same question. What is your parting shot in relation to this this conversation this evening? And going forward, actually, what would you like to leave with viewers with?
Okay, love the neighbor. I think what Daktari said, I picked one of the things. Start with the person closest to you. So instead of coming to the children's home to pay school fees for my orphans or whatever kind of thing, why don't you start with your house girl or with your watchman? Start from there, kind of, right? Charity, cliche it is, but it begins from home. So just start from the person next to you. Don't give me 200 bales of unga and then your house girl is starving or your watchman is got a uniform, right?
Okay.
Charity begins from home. Yeah. That's my parting shot.
Thank you so much, Clifford. Daktari, last but not least. Although I know Mato has a parting shot, but in terms of our guest, Mato is a regular, so.
Yeah, he's not the guest. All right. I think that it's been a very enlightening discussion. I think we've also been listening to ourselves and what we're saying, and we are more or less agreed that we need to redefine who the neighbor is and show love. I think that's what we've come up with. I was just smiling when Ismail said the world is coming to an end. It is true. Many ladies realized, me included, that you don't need, you're wearing a mask, so your lipstick can't really be seen anyway. Your high heels, you're working from home, so you're just walking around in whatever shoes there are, so your high heels are staring at you. And then your clothes, you're in jeans half the time. And so, you start telling yourself, let me give, which is not a bad thing. But on a serious note, I think that the danger we have is that the more social inequality there is, the more we will lack empathy. So loving thy neighbor has to be taught. We have to teach it in our homes. We have to talk about it. Our children have to see us doing it. And just like Clifford said, start with the way you treat the people around you, the house help.
Yeah.
There's no need of cooking a lot of mandazi and eating it for 3 days. When these guys at the gate stay there with nothing, if you gave them, you don't lose much. In fact, you're sharing. And so that spirit, you don't have to wait for Christmas Day. It should be all year, where you're giving. And you learn that when you give, you don't lose anything. You actually just share that same lesson that you were taught when you first went to kindergarten, 4 years old, and you're told, share that orange, and you thought, I'm going to die if I just share this. But back to that basic, that if you shared, you enjoy your orange better than just having it all by yourself and others are wondering what is wrong with you. So going forward, let's reduce the social inequalities by sharing and by knowing that spirit is what binds us together as human beings, male and female and otherwise.
Thank you so much, Dr. And again, thank you to all our guests for taking the time out to come on the show this evening to discuss Love Thy Neighbor. Something that Ismail said about, and trust me to pick up on this, the aspect of gated communities you can pull together a lot of internet providers and what have you. And one thing that sprung to mind immediately was, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's Wi-Fi. I know where you thought that was going to go, but yeah. I don't know why that popped in my head. I have a different plane of thinking sometimes. But yeah, Mato, let's hand it over back to you. And he's muted himself. Okay, Martin, unmute. It's the small button there. Well, some neighbors coveted your Wi-Fi, haven't they?
Yes. That was As usual.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Yes, we can.
He's using the neighbor's Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, I'm saying your neighbor's commented your Wi-Fi.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you, Martin.
Neighbor's Wi-Fi.
Oh. And he's on the technical side, so you can imagine it's not does not bode well. Okay, and I think I know what his parting shot would have been, because we tend to collaborate and talk about these things every so often. Mato, are you okay?
I'm sharing a screen, the Facebook.
Yep.
Facebook. Can you see my screen? No?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
There we go. So Facebook is like having a nose, like having nosy neighbors who don't really like. Then we've kind of touched on this aspect. That's a Danish proverb, and this picture just came in one of my chat groups while we were doing the show, and I just loved it. I said I must share this. You see, these children have proved that money can't buy happiness. You just need a reason to be happy, and we can all do that in our various. I mean, look at that selfie with a sleeper.
Interesting.
That's nice.
That's very cool.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you very much, Dr. Kathleen, Ismail, Clifford. Thank you for gracing us with your presence in tonight's show. This is the last show of the season for those watching us, and we will pick up again next year in January. It's been a journey. Started one day when Wawero and I just sat at the office. It was right in the heart of COVID, masks and all. I think lockdown was something like 7 p.m. and stuff like that. And he had come in to do a voiceover recording. And I said, hey, what's happening? Nothing. We're sitting, no work, no nothing. So let's do something. At least we've got all this equipment lying around, tools and everything. We've got the skills, the know-how. Let's just do this show and, do something for the people while they're sitting at home and watching. And this is how Great Leadership began. Just in the span of 3 days, we got everything together, the logos, the artwork, the platform, everything was up and running. So Wawero, thank you, hats off. That was amazing. And I must say the same to 3T, who you don't see during the show. She was a guest on one of our shows, and somehow we just picked up and she became part of the family. And of course, I must mention Elijah Mumo, who's behind the scenes right from show number 1. That's the team that have dedicated time every week, day in, day out. We are not being paid for it. We've got no sponsorship, nothing. We just do it from our heart. Because what we are discussing, we know can change a lot of things, attitudes, behavioral change. And as you can see the topic now, I'm sure somebody will have ideas out of the discussion that we've had this evening. So thank you all of you once again. And I wish you a lovely festive season as you think what you're going to do for your neighbor this festive season. And I think with those, we sign out and say good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh, bye-bye.
Nice meeting you.
Yeah.